This week at Lebanon Road, we're talking about why is there sickness? This is J.D. Buckner, I'm Adam Fawn, and J.D., we may be proving why there's sickness. I'm going to peel back the curtain a little bit. We enjoy doing these videos. We enjoy coming in this room and talking together and sharing these with you. It is a meat locker in this room.
Yeah, it's got to be, I don't know, what do you say, 50 degrees in here?
Something like that.
It's cold.
We open the door, it's like,
You'll
we're
see
going to
our
talk
breath.
about, why is there sickness? And we may be finding out why there's sickness. But J.D., it's that time of year.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, last 2 days, my oldest son, James David, has been homesick with a fever over 100 degrees. So he's at the doctor right now while we're recording this. And it just sort of got me to thinking about why is there sickness in the world? And, you know, on a small level, we look at sickness like my son, he has a fever, so he's probably got a virus, you know, something that'll get better in a couple of days or even by tomorrow. But, you know, on a grander scale, we can look at sickness like cancer, things that become terminal, long-term illnesses, or even injuries that are a result of some kinds of illness or debilitating things. All those kinds of sickness. Why is that in the world? This is a question that theologians have struggled with for, I don't know, hundreds of years.
We're probably not going to solve the whole issue in a 9-minute video,
yeah.
but it is a long-standing question
Right.
for sure.
So I just wanted us to think about it a little bit this morning. Obviously, we don't have all the answers, but there are some important things to consider. One thing that I want to say is that what I'm going to say is not meant to be harsh or callous in any way. If you are struggling with an illness, something terminal or something that is serious and will go on and maybe something incurable, all those kinds of natures, I'm not saying that you just got to grin and bear it.
Yeah.
And
which is often how we treat it.
Yeah.
Just the way life is.
You know, I would never ever do that. But when we consider where sickness all started, it may help us to understand. And while it may not give us comfort, it may give us a small measure of peace. Sickness started because we broke the world. Mm-hmm. Adam and Eve disobeyed God, and that's when it all got broken and deviated from the plan that God had for us. Now, we may say, well, JD, that was so long ago, and I didn't partake of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. Yeah, it wasn't my fault. But we do have that thing in common with Adam and Eve. We have all sinned. We have all disobeyed God in some way. So even if they had overcome it, our sin would have broken it eventually, mm-hmm. right? Because God can't be around sin. So the world is this way because of the things we did to it. And that just doesn't go with sin, but even a lot of things that cause illnesses in our world. When you're talking about pollution and things that cause cancer, a lot of that stuff is man-made or produced byproducts of things that we've done. Even going back to, if you go back to Genesis 6 and you think that maybe there was a water canopy over the earth mm-hmm. that sort of protected it from some of the UV rays and things like skin cancer and that sort of stuff, but that was gone. Well, how did that get taken away when the sky opened up, the windows of the sky and the floods came down? Well, mankind was evil and they disobeyed God. And so God punished the world in that way. But it all goes back to us.
And so let me ask the $10,000 question. Are you saying because I have a cold on a small scale, or I have, you know, Parkinson's disease or something on a grand scale, that that's a result of my sin?
Absolutely not.
Good, okay.
And that's a good question. And we're not saying, you know, you're going to go up to somebody in the hospital and say, well, this is your fault.
Right. Because you know? what you're saying is we're talking about a bigger picture, because
yes.
we want to make sure we're drawing that line. And if you have one of the diseases JD mentioned, or maybe just a seasonal cold or flu, that is not a result necessarily of your sin, but sickness in general is a result of mankind's sin.
Yeah. And how do we tell that in the Bible? Well, the book of Job is a great example. Obviously, when you read that, to use Adam's words, you peel back the curtain, you see that none of that was Job's fault. that God himself calls Job a righteous man and blameless, and he doesn't turn toward evil and all of those things. Yet those bad things happen to him, and that's not a result of Job's sin or something that he's done wrong on a small scale. That stuff is in the world because of what we've done on a large scale. But then you go toward the end of the book and you see how Job reacts to those things that he's had to endure and how God reacts to him. And that tells us a lot about the nature of, we don't get punished for our sin in that way. Because we're sinning, that's why we're sick. We're sinning, that's why we've gotten bad luck in life. Those things like karma and stuff like
the
that.
thing that used to be called the theory of retribution is what we learned in Job class. What
Yeah.
they believed in. You got what you deserved,
Right.
even including sickness. The gods were punishing you.
Yeah,
If you were well, is the gods blessing you? Well, not necessarily.
Not according to the book of Job.
Right.
So, one thing that I did want to say, it doesn't really answer any questions for us. Why do people get sick? Well, there's bad stuff in the world, and God has laws, and if we were able to bend or break those laws to preserve ourselves, then everybody should be able to do it for it to be fair, and that would just make the world chaos. If I could change the laws of nature to suit my own needs, then we would have nothing to rely on or count on. But even though this stuff is in the world, we don't ever need to think that God doesn't care about it. Obviously, we are the ones who disobeyed God, and that's why the world got broken, if you will. You go to Romans 8, it groans and those sorts of things. But God still cares for us, and the very notion of the Bible and how he stuck with us and provided a way of salvation through his Son shows that, hey, even though you, because of your disobedience, allowed this stuff to happen, I still care about you, and I still love you, and I don't want it to be this way, even though it has to be this way because of my nature. And what I was reminded of was 1 Peter chapter 5, and beginning in verse 6, Peter says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Cast all your cares upon him, for he cares for you." It doesn't seem like it now, and this may be a callous thing too. I'm not trying to be callous, but the things that we endure in this life will not compare to the glories that are found in heaven. And that's a bitter thing to say. For the last year, I've struggled with pain in my back where I had that surgery. It's every day I'm in pain. And, that's worse than some people, but not as bad as others, But even for the rest of my life, if my back is messed up, I've got to say to myself, and I've got to know that it will not compare to the eternal glories that are found with God when this life is over. So maybe that is where we can find comfort in sickness, that even in a lifetime, it's temporary. It's temporary.
Revelation 21, I think it's verse 4, about the verse that ends with, "The former things are passed away." And one of the things listed in that verse that will not be in heaven is pain.
Yeah.
And I think that ties to really any disease causes some level of pain, whether it's joints hurting or just nose hurting or whatever.
Headache.
Yeah, there's pain involved, but that's a beautiful verse to remind us that nothing painful will be there. Not even the simplest little seasonal cold will be in heaven. That's a beautiful thought. But if you're someone suffering with, as you mentioned, a terminal or a great debilitating disease or sickness, that should be an even greater thought, that there won't be a hint of that in heaven. And so we may not have answered every theological angle of why there's sickness, but we hope this is encouraging, because all of us are going to be sick from time to time. Some are going to have great illnesses that last a long time. Some will just be, those things that last a couple of days and we kind of get better, but they still stink in the moment. They're still awful in the moment. But we want to think about the fact that it's going to be better in heaven, and God cares, as you mentioned. That's something that should help us no matter what we're going through, as long as sickness or disease is a part of our life. Just a couple of reminders before we sign off. This coming Sunday, our K through 6 and preschoolers will be having their annual caroling. That's always a fun time. I think it's 4:15. We also have a Heartland service at 4 o'clock this coming Sunday, so some overlapping there, but some good things for everybody to be involved in. All of us can go to Heartland. Our children can go caroling. Again, I believe it's 4:15, but check the bulletin on that, the time for that. And just lots of good things going on around holiday time and great things. And we hope these videos are encouraging you as we continue to make them. We look forward to being back with you again next week. Until then, this is This Week at Lebanon Road.